Hey guys, what's up? So now that we've learned the basics of HDRi within Enscape, I would like to make some specific simulations so we can explore all the features in a deeper way. And I would also like to show you how we can organize our visual settings presets, considering that now we are using HDRi instead of the procedural method. So in this video, I'm using the same Villa Savoye file that we've been using before, and I would like to represent two different times of the day, the sunset and the evening. So to produce my simulations, I'll start Enscape. I will check if my views are synchronized. I can also turn on my safe frame. And since I won't control the position of the sun here in shadows, I can begin my production by opening the visual settings. And actually, before making any kind of adjustment here, it would be very important to expand this window. I'll rearrange the windows here and create a preset considering the first simulation that would be a sunset image. So I will click here and create preset. I will name it sunset preset. I'll hit enter, and now all the changes that I will make here in the visual settings will be saved in this preset that I've just created. So I can click now here to minimize my window, and first of all I will choose the white mode so I can have the material override effect, and then I will explore the sky tab, and the first step here is to change the source to skybox so that we can load our HDR image down here. Before loading this image, I will show you once more the Polyhaven website, and here, as we've seen before, we have a lot of images that we can download here in this HDRi section. So I'll click here, and in this example I explored the category skies. So I clicked here, and if you scroll down all the way to the bottom, you will see this HDR called Chiara 1. So you can download this image by clicking here, and it's important to check the quality of the HDRi. So the bigger the size, of course, we'll have a better image, but it will also consume more memory and the size of the file will be very high. So for our example, I think that 2000 pixels is okay, but you can choose an image with more resolution if you like, and you'll probably get a better image, but for now 2K it's okay. And you can also choose whether you would like to download the HDR or EXR, which are very similar extensions, but for Enscape we have to choose this first option here because it doesn't support the EXR until now. So I'll choose HDR, and basically you can download the image here and use in your model. But since I have already provided this image in the work files, you can of course use the one that I've provided. So returning to SketchUp, I'll click here the folder, and I'll choose this image called Chiara 1. And this image was of course chosen because it has all the aspects of a sunset image. So I'll click here. And the first thing we have to do here so that it works properly is to activate this brightness point as sun direction option. So now the photograph is actually projecting light in our model, and if we rotate the image, the sunlight will rotate as well, producing very interesting shadows. And we can also play around with the brightness value until we get an interesting result. So I'll basically play with this slider up here till I find an interesting position for the sun, and maybe somewhere around here. I think it's quite fine because we have some shadows hitting the facade and also some shadows here in the grass. And we can also now play around with the brightness, and you can see that if we drag to the left we get more contrast, and in the opposite way we have a more soft image with colorful shadows. So maybe somewhere around here I think it's quite okay. And after making these adjustments here in the sky tab, I can go on and enhance my image working with the other parameters. For example, we can explore the image tab and play around with the highlights or the shadows. We can work with the saturation and the color temperature. So you are free to play around with all these features so that you can get a nicer image. I think that here we can increase the vignette, so we have this dark border. We can also increase the bloom, so we have this fuzziness in the bright areas. And of course we can go on making these adjustments, but now it would be important to return to the main tab and change the style to none. So now we can see the final result with the materials. And maybe we can make some extra changes. For example, I think we can decrease a little bit the exposure so the image is not so bright. And I guess we can also change a little bit the color temperature, maybe to make it a little bit warmer. So now I think the image is quite nice and it represents quite well the sunset time of the day. And if we are happy with this result, we can render our final image. So first of all, we can go to the main tab and increase the rendering quality to ultra. We can also check the output, and full HD is quite okay for this example. And basically now we can click here in the screenshot button, and now we can save our image. I will name it Sunset Simulation, and I will choose the JPEG extension and I will save it, and then just after a few seconds we'll have our final image. Okay, so this was our first image using the HDRi system. So I would like to make a second simulation using the same method, but this time I would like to simulate evening. So basically I need to find another image that resembles evening or nighttime. So first of all, to keep my file organized, I'll create a second preset because all these parameters that I've changed were saved in the sunset preset. So I'll click here once again to expand my window. I will create another preset, and this time I will call it evening preset. Okay, so now we have the sunset and the evening one. And you can notice that when we created the new preset, all the parameters were resetted. So we have to configure now from scratch, but it's okay. So my first step here is to once again in the main tab choose the white style. So we can see the first results with material override. I will minimize here this window. Okay, then I can once again go to the sky tab and change the white ground source to the skybox. Okay, and now I can load another image, so I can browse my library and search for an evening HDRi. So click here, and in this simulation I will use another HDRi that I've provided to you called Kloppenheim. So click here. Okay, after loading we have to click here in this brightness point as sun direction. Okay, and now we can start playing around with the rotation and also with our brightness value down here. So I can rotate my spherical image around my model. I can play around with the brightness until I get an interesting result. And after making some tests, I think that somewhere around 170 degrees it's quite okay, and also the brightness around 600 or 700 will give us a nice result. We have to be careful because if we decrease this value here a lot, we will probably get a very strong light that comes from the artificial lights of the photograph, so it could result in a very strange image. So I'll keep this up here, and I guess somewhere around 600 is quite okay. And after changing these values here, we can now explore the main tab. And first of all, I will decrease the exposure because I would like to simulate evening and the image is too bright. So I will make it a little bit darker. somewhere around here. I think it's quite okay. And I really appreciate when we still have the blue tone from the skylight in this kind of simulation. So here in image, I will change the color temperature and I'll try to make this image more blue. So I will increase this value here so we have a colder image, and I can also increase a little bit the saturation. So now we are starting to have this blue tone that I was looking for. And okay, we are reaching an interesting result, and would be nice to combine this skylight effect with some artificial light as we've done in the previous nighttime simulations throughout the course. So to insert the lights, I will move this window a little bit to the right, and I can click here in our Enscape objects. I will once again use the sphere light, which is a very simple one. I'll click here. Now I can click somewhere around here, and when we position a light, we can click in a first position once, and then we can move to define the right position. And here we can press the up arrow, so now we can move this light and put it somewhere close to the ceiling, and you can see the effect of the light now here. And since we've changed the exposure, probably we have to increase the intensity of the light. So I'll drag the slider here to the right, and now the light is getting powerful and producing a nice effect. I can make this light a little bit warmer by applying a material to it. So I can click here in our paint bucket. I can choose a color here. Maybe this one here is okay. Now I can click in the light, so we have a warmer color. And now we can basically copy this light along our model. I can use my move tool and press the Ctrl key. So now we can make a few copies and you can place them wherever you want. And now we have our night simulation. I will click in our scene here to restore the previous angle. And of course, it's important to once again change the style to none, so we can see the final result. And now I can make some final adjustments considering the final image. And first of all, I'm noticing here that we have some light projection probably coming from the HDRi. So I'll go back to the sky tab and I'll increase a little bit this brightness here, so that the HDRi is not so powerful, and I guess now the image looks a little bit better. Okay, I will then once again go to the main tab and decrease the exposure so that the image is not so bright. And I will also in the image tab decrease a little bit the saturation because the colors are too strong, and maybe I can activate the auto contrast to get a more interesting image. Also increase a little bit the vignette effect, and maybe even the bloom, so the bright areas now are a little bit fuzzier. So I guess now I'm quite happy with this result. So basically I need to increase the rendering quality in the main tab. I'll use the best quality possible, and now I have to click here in the screenshot button. This time I will name this file evening simulation. I will also save it as a JPEG image, and basically I will save it. Okay, and then just after a few seconds we have our second rendering produced with the HDRi method. Okay, so we have already rendered our images, but now it would be important to take a little bit of time and organize our model. We have a problem here regarding the presets. If we expand here this window and we shift from the evening preset to the sunset preset, we can notice that the presets are working, but the artificial light that we've positioned in the evening preset is also appearing here, which we don't want. So this issue is happening because we didn't work with scenes, just with visual settings presets. So we can actually correct this by creating some scenes. But first of all, it would be important to organize these lights in a specific tag. So I will close this window for now, and if we explore our tags tab here in the default tray, we can see that we have two existing tags. one for the building and one for the surrounding. And I will create a third tag called lights. So I will click here, I'll name it lights, and I will apply these layers to our lights. So basically, I will return here to my SketchUp model, and using my selection tool, I'll create here a big selection around the lights that I've created. Okay, they are all selected. I will explore the Entity Info tab, and I will choose here the tag lights. So now these lights belong to this tag. So now we can hide these lights whenever we press here the lights tag. Okay, and now we have to create two different scenes for the two different simulations that we have. So I'll basically open here my view management, and the first scene that I will create will be the sunset. So I will turn off here the lights, and I will create here a view. I'll name it sunset view. Okay, and here I can already link this sunset view with the lights turned off with the sunset preset, and I can hit create. Okay, now I can turn on the lights and I can create another view. So I'll click here in create view. This time I will name it evening view. Okay, and this time I will link this view with the evening preset. So now when the lights are on, we have a different view with the evening preset linked to it. So I'll click here create. Okay, and now if we change here from the evening view to the sunset view, we have organized properly our scene with the sunset view with no artificial lights and the evening view with artificial lights and the correct visual setting applied to it.